you can put it on there.
We're live.
We are live. We're going to start here in just a few minutes. We'll let some of you guys get on Facebook Live. This is the Shepherd Public Schools Town Hall Facebook Live.
That's a powerful intro, man. I'm pumped.
Thank you.
We are live. We need like the Tonight Show thing going on, or what was the one that's no longer on? What's his face?
I have no idea, Jay. There's a lot of shows that are on.
Whatever his name was. Arsenio Hall. He used to have a
pretty good.
Wow, it jumped quick to 26. I saw 26 pop up pretty fast.
Okay.
Let it hit 40.
Yeah.
31.
We're very, very close here. Close enough. Okay, so this is the Shepherd Public Schools Facebook Live. Called it a town hall discussion. My name is Luke Sawyer. I'm the chief of police here in Shepherd. I'm also a parent of 5 kids that go to Shepherd. Next to me, it's actually on my left on the screen, is actually, I'm going to go to, it's on the left of my screen, and that is Superintendent Steve Brimmer. Next to him is School Board President Mike Klump, and on my other side on my screen is teacher and union president Jay Gross. And Jay, since I introduced you last, I will let you say something first.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Luke. A couple things tonight, people. It was, I thought, extremely great of Mr. Klump and Mr. Brimmer to agree to do this. Luke and I have been kind of working behind the scenes to have it done. The biggest thing we want to do is keep you informed. Mr. Brimmer and I have been doing videos throughout his 2 years here, trying to keep you informed, and there's so many questions right now today in the world of education. We want to keep it a discussion. We want to keep it clean, fair, non-attacking, non-threatening, because we're here to share everything we know. And Mr. Brimmer will reiterate this, so will Mr. Klump, so will Luke. We have to wait for what the state says. Everything's going to come down to waiting for the state. But what we want to do is show that Shepherd pride. Here's the 4 of us in an open forum with you, the community, the parents, probably some students on here, doing the best we can to make Shepherd rock. Because I'm going to tell you straight up, I've heard from a lot of people since I posted this around the state and even around the country, there's nobody doing what we're doing tonight. So they're taking a risk here. They're a little nervous, but with Luke and me, we hope we can guide them through. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Klump because I know you got a statement to read, Michael.
Thank you, Jay. Yeah, thanks for having us on. So I'd just like to take a minute before we begin, just on behalf of the Board of Education, to thank all the staff at Shepherd Schools. The last couple months, like we know, have been challenging to say the least. I just want to say how proud I am to be part of the district and the community. Everyone here has seen the challenges that we were faced with and has stepped up to that challenge. From each of our administrators and superintendent, organizing the efforts to set up virtual learning in a record amount of time and tailoring that learning to each of their specific buildings, teachers, and students. The teachers that not only had to train themselves, but had 1,800 kids to teach to learn virtually as well. Thank you to the parents. I know it's been a struggle with this online learning. My wife and I have 4 kids in the school system, in elementary, middle, and high school. So trust me, I know it's been a challenge to have to work all day and come home at night and be a teacher too. We have some amazing teachers in the school system, and don't doubt it for a minute that they wouldn't have wanted to be in that classroom with your kids as much as you probably wanted them there. I've seen our teachers and staff go above and beyond for the kids during these trying times to make learning essentially fun and interesting. Like a middle school teacher I know of who had a relative of his broadcasting live from the Netherlands to teach the kids about their country and how they were coping with COVID over there. I have an elementary teacher I know of that is teaching her 2nd grade kids about goats and chickens that she's raising on her home farm. To all our high school, everything the high school's done with the signs and the parades, soon to be graduation for our seniors to make sure they're recognized for all their achievements. Just some absolutely amazing work, and there are numerous examples of this. We had food service staff, along with some volunteers, serve over 75,000 meals during the shutdown to the school to make sure our kids didn't go hungry. Thank you to the transportation department for delivering those meals, along with needed tech devices to the kids, the maintenance, janitorial, grounds crews, the cleaning and disinfecting of everything so we could feel safe about coming back to school. Thank you to the technology department for going out in the community and setting up Wi-Fi hotspots so kids that didn't have access to internet could have a place they could log in and learn. And thank you to the teachers and staff who, when they didn't hear from some of these students in a while, they would jump in a car and drive to their home to see if they were okay. Just wanted to thank you to the community for rallying around our school and our students. It's all of these things and a lot more that certainly made me proud to be a Blue Jay. And on behalf of my fellow board members who all continue to work hard and make challenging decisions for the district, I wanted to thank everyone for your efforts. And I think now is the time to move forward as Blue Jays together and see where we go from here. Thanks.
Well done, Mike.
Mr. Brimmer?
All right. Well, I would love to sit here and tell everybody exactly what school is going to look like in the fall. But I simply cannot do that right now. Where we are is the governor has created a task force. And on that task force are representatives from school districts throughout Michigan. That task force has been meeting regularly, from what I understand. And they are supposed to take a recommendation to the governor and to the Department of Ed by the end of June to make recommendations about what school should look like in the fall. I guess the governor and the Department of Ed will review those recommendations, and then we should have some guidance from the state by mid-July. So at that point, I mean, as soon as we know what's going on, we will certainly get that news out to the public. But for me to sit here right now and say it's going to be exactly like this in the fall, I think I would be doing a disservice because we simply do not know right now. I sent a couple letters out last week the goal of the letters was to reassure parents that we would be prepared for whatever scenario happened to be thrown our way. And maybe they didn't come out that way. And if people misunderstood, I do apologize for that. And just to review those, there were three basic scenarios I laid out. The first scenario would have been face-to-face instruction where all the kids are back in the schools. Far and away my favorite. I mean, I hope we can do that. I doubt it personally, just a hunch. But if we are on a point like that where we can have our kids back in school, we do also want to offer a virtual or an online class for students. In case there are parents who are leery and afraid of sending their kids back to school, we would like to give them that virtual option as well. The next option or scenario would be the complete opposite of that, and that would be a continuation of the virtual instruction like we've been doing since the end of March, the end of April. But I think if we did it in the fall, it would be much more successful than it was this spring. And the reason I say that is we have a bunch of teachers who have been taught in a certain way to educate kids, and never have they been taught to do it online. So what I think it's actually very impressive what our staff has been able to do with very little training in a short period of time. If we have to go back to school virtually in the fall, we would be better prepared for that. We would get training for them. And I do think it would be much more successful. In addition to that, when the governor issued her order on March 13th, we did not have enough devices, computers, to send home with the kids at that time. We now do. So we would be able to implement a virtual learning environment relatively quickly. In addition to that, we've used some federal money to purchase wireless hotspots. So if a family is at home with no internet, we could get them a wireless hotspot so that those children would be able to do online schooling as well. Excuse me. And then the third option, which is probably going to be the most difficult of the three, would be the hybrid model. In a hybrid model, students would come to school 2 days a week and then have virtual learning 3 days a week. And then we would stagger when students come to school. So we'd have about half of the students in the school at a time. By doing that, we would be able to distance the students farther apart, which would obviously make them safer if COVID is still an issue. If we are using a hybrid model, we would also plan to offer a 100% virtual model as well, once again, for the parent that's concerned about sending their kid to school due to safety concerns. So those are our main three options that I don't even want to say options. Those are the three things that could be handed down to us, because an option is something you choose. And I just want to reiterate, I don't think we're going to be able to choose this one. It's going to be mandated by the state, and we will follow those directives. The key point for us is flexibility. We want to be able to switch from one scenario to another relatively quickly. For example, if we are back in school doing face-to-face instruction and there's a positive test somewhere and the health department tells us to shut down, we'd like to be able to switch to a virtual learning environment very quickly in that situation. So I do think the flexibility with these unknowns is very important. So we've gained a lot of that, and I'm very happy about that. And then the last big hurdle we're looking at right now is we have all this uncertainty over the educational aspect of it. And now we're looking at potentially catastrophic cuts in funding as well, which does not make it any easier too. The public schools get their money from the school aid fund, and the school aid fund gets a large portion of their money from income tax and sales tax. Well, when a state shuts down for 2 months, there's not as much income tax or sales tax coming in. As a result, schools are looking at a potential very large cut in funding. So there's a lot of variables right now, and we're not exactly sure how they're going to play out. But rest assured, when we do find out, we will inform the public, and we will have a plan in place and make it as effective as we can.
Hey, Steve, if I can interrupt just for a second, as the not police chief, but moderator of this motley crew today. So just really quick, this is an opportunity for people, and we're getting questions people are asking, and we'll answer them here in a second. Yeah. But I think it's really important to reiterate, because I've had conversations with people who they want to we need a parent group, and we need this group, and we need to, and as Steve, as you just said, this is going to be mandated by the state of Michigan. And so I guess I would encourage, and I've seen some people actually today suggest that if you have suggestions for education for this coming school year, that you contact Lansing, you contact your representatives and your Congress people and let them know what your thoughts are, because at the local school level, we're at the mercy of what the state wants to do. Is that correct?
Yes, I was on a call with the state superintendent, Dr. Rice, and he said schooling in the fall will be very top down. We will be essentially told what to do, which honestly, with this much uncertainty, I welcome some direction. We didn't get any direction in the spring, and so if we can get some direction from the state, I welcome that. But you are correct.
Okay, absolutely. So I do have some questions, and as we said, there are some coming up on Facebook, and I can read those off and ask you gentlemen the answers to them. But just a couple that we had before. So we had some people that were curious about how busing is going to work, because obviously if we're trying to keep it distanced, we only have so many buses. What would transportation potentially look like?
Yeah, that's been actually one of my biggest concerns too, is how do you social distance on a school bus? And we've measured them out seat by seat. And I think Mr. Sura said he can maybe get 13 kids on a bus that normally holds 60. That would be very complicated, no question. And I'm hoping that when we do receive recommendations from that task force, that they do address transportation, because that's a huge issue for a district like us that has a very rural population. So
sure.
I agree. That's a great question that I don't have the answer to at this point.
Okay. Here's one that I definitely know we have the answer to. What is the first day of school listed on the calendar for 2020-2021 school year?
It's August 24th.
August 24th is going to be the first day of the upcoming school year, regardless of what we're told to do.
We're going to start somehow on the 24th. We're going to be having school. So
Okay.
That's also my daughter's birthday.
Okay, there we go. Somebody asked if there is an option where teachers rotate. What does that mean for students who would like to do band or choir? I guess they also said, how does that impact art, industrial arts, those type classes?
Yeah, those are great questions. I'm guessing that person read the CDC recommendations for schools, because one of the things in the CDC recommendations was students come to school and they stay in that classroom all day long. So instead of students at the high school rotating from first hour to second hour, they actually stay in the class and the teachers would rotate.
Okay.
Obviously, core classes, you could probably make that work, but whoever asked the question, it's a great question, because you couldn't do that with band, or you could not do that with industrial arts. And there would have to be some leeway there to allow those kids to transfer to those classes. Otherwise, that would simply not work.
Absolutely. And I think you bring up a very important point, because I know when those CDC guidelines came out, and as we know, we're on social media. Our department has a strong social media presence, but people oftentimes lose their absolute mind on social media. And people were reading the recommendations from the CDC as gospel as to how they were worried that we were going to have plexiglass dividers between desks in the classroom. And, that was, so I think that's an important point to say. Just because you read it online doesn't mean that it's the truth. I mean, I know we've also seen people have asked about other schools saying we absolutely will be having in-person classes at their particular school around the state of Michigan.
Can't say that.
I don't know how they're doing that. I don't know how they can. If the state comes down and makes a recommendation for something, they can hold your funding. So you got to follow the state recommendations.
Okay, I think that's good. Somebody asked how this is going to affect sports and how school sports are going to look. I know that the MHSAA just came down and is allowing some teams to meet with certain parameters. Somebody had possibly talked about seasons changing, and I know in the big scheme of things, with a lot of unknowns, do we have any direction from them on anything pertaining to sports?
Not really direction, I would say at this point. There's been a lot of conversation.
Okay.
How do you play football in social distance? You can't do it. How do you play soccer or wrestling? You simply can't do that. That there has been talk at least superintendent meetings of changing the seasons, and that might work. I've read a lot about a possible vaccine by the end of the year. If that's the case, maybe second half of the year, things could open up a little bit.
Back to the top.
We could do other activities that we can't do in the fall. So
okay.
Those are all questions I'm not 100% sure of yet.
Okay. And I think it's okay to say you don't know, because that's just being honest and transparent. And that would be the same for any school district in the state of Michigan and maybe around the country to go, I'm not sure, because we're at the will of the people in Lansing. And again, if there's people you want to communicate the message to, necessarily it wouldn't be Shepherd Central Office. It would be in Lansing to their representatives and congressmen, and you can find that stuff all online. So here's another question. This is a good one, because obviously we have a very significant amount of our students that travel up to Mount Pleasant for CTE classes and things like that. And so is the goal or the idea to be that the schools in our district, the Beale Cities and the Mount Pleasants, that we would be on a very similar schedule so that it kind of all lines up? Is that kind of maybe the plan?
I mean, I'm kind of chuckling because these questions are almost coming directly from the superintendent's meeting we had earlier today. So I think everyone has the same exact questions, including us. Yeah, there would have to be some coordination of scheduling there for CTE especially. So I think you'd be seeing some very similar calendars and things like that. Maybe not exactly the same, but we would have to have something very similar so that we could work out those shared classes.
Sure, and I think that's important for as a parent to know that these discussions are being had amongst our local superintendents. So people that are panicking because what's my child going to do for CTE, because it's an incredible program, that stuff is being discussed, and we want to make sure that every kid in our county has the same opportunities to experience those. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, and I'll just take a second too. Every superintendent around here is working tirelessly to try to figure this stuff out. I'm looking for my phone, but I get text messages constantly about different ideas on how we could schedule things. So everybody is working on it.
Okay, that's good. So I'm going to start scrolling through some of the questions that are coming in on Facebook. You can go down. Let's see. Jamie, nope, stop. I've got my brand new freshman son, Cooper, as my tech guy here. So Jamie says, new to the district last fall, and I have felt so out of the loop with the school and what's been happening and going on. Jamie, if you get on, we've got multiple, every building has a Facebook page. There's been letters and emails and things like that sent out. So if you're not getting those, call central office and make sure I would assume if you have a child there, then you should be getting those type things. Hang on, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties here with my tech guy and what he's got going on here. Okay, let's see here. Let me get back up to the top. There's actually some really good questions coming in. All right. Jesse Keller, these kids have had enough of this home stuff. Jesse, I think we all agree on that. I don't think that that's anything that we can't all agree on. Dominique is wondering how does she obtain information about a hotspot? Is that something she can call central office and we can let her know where there's hotspots at?
Sure.
Dominique, if you give central office a call, it's what's the number? 828
5520. I mean, they're not active right now since school ended.
Gotcha. Okay.
So he did deactivate them, but if we're virtual again in the fall, they would definitely be active again.
Yep, absolutely. Let's see here. Yep, and we got people telling where there's an option. Yeah, if you email the school or you contact them, that'll be good. Nicole asks, what does this mean for support staff as well as transportation people regarding options and possible budget cuts? I don't know if that's something we're discussing as far as cuts. I think she's wondering about the support staff overall. Mike, is that something you want to touch on?
Yeah, I can touch base just real quick. I guess broad overview on budget. It's obviously been a big thing we're talking about, right? We're budgeting right now initial hit of about $600 per student cut in funding from this last year and for next year. So they're actually going to the state's talking about cutting us on our budget, which our school year is pretty much over, and now they want to essentially take money away. So what that means to us is a total of about $2 million in cuts over 2 years, over this year and yet next year. We've made some changes in the district, made some cuts, but what we're trying to do, I guess, our district is set up, luckily, due to the fact of previous boards, our board, previous administration has always done really well and been very fiscally responsible here at Shepherd. So we're sitting very good financially, and we're able to burden some of that loss for a couple of years. So we're gonna take that in and try to retain personnel as a number one. Well, I guess kids safety as a number one, retaining personnel as a number two to move forward. So I think very few people are going to be affected by some of these cuts. So some of the things that we're doing, I'll give you some examples. We're not going to buy a bus this year. We're making some savings through true attrition. We have some teachers that retired, and we're just not going to replace some teachers. So we have a lot of those kind of things we can do here that won't affect too many people to try to get us back into budget. But I feel really good because with where we're sitting compared to other public schools, they're all going through this and suffering through this together. And Shepherd's sitting well enough financially that other schools are going to be suffering a lot worse than we are. So there's going to have to be some sort of federal aid step in, some sort of state aid. They have, some funds, some rainy day funds of the state they can pull out of to come in and help us out with funding. I mean, there's lots of other pots of money to pull from, and I really feel that that's going to have to happen to save a lot of these districts. So.
Okay, that's good. And just a reminder, more questions are coming in, so this is your opportunity to ask questions of these three gentlemen who have the answers for them. Jesse says, how does this work for the little kids supposed to be starting this year? Guess I'm confused on that, Jesse. They're going to start on August 24th, just like any other student would. So I guess if that didn't answer your question, you can clarify on it, and we'll get there. Jamie is still, Jamie, you're still working on Power School. Call the office and they will help you out. Cynthia asked the $1 million question that right now is out there. Will the kids have to wear masks when they are at school?
I don't have a direct answer to that. I have a guess. My guess is as good as anyone else's. I'm not going to guess out loud, but I would guess so, yes.
Okay.
Not a permanent statement.
But we don't know for sure.
We don't know.
No, we do not know for sure.
I can add to that, though.
Right.
I'm pretty sure all the furniture in my classroom, my couches, my leather chairs, they're going to go because you need to have single seating. It needs to be spaced and it needs to be sanitized. That breaks my heart because the one thing I've always tried to create is a home atmosphere for kids, a home away from home. I've been pulling out all my furniture and giving it to seniors who are going away to college. I mean, it's a world that's changing.
Yep. And I think that's, for worse or worse, I mean, it is changing, and we're going to have to change the way things happen. Crystal says, do these three possibilities affect dual enrollment for the fall? I know we talked about dual enrollment a second ago, but again, I know there's a lot of unknown, but if we have a student who's dual enrolled, how do these options, if they're taking classes at mid or at CMU, do we have any idea how that's going to look?
I guess it would depend what model we're talking. If we're 100% virtual, that would be one thing. If we're 100% face-to-face, that's another thing. I think the most difficult one to schedule would be the hybrid model, where I think, your high school counselors are going to have their hands full scheduling for something like that. So I guess it would just depend what model that we're going to be told we have to follow.
Well, and again, obviously the dual and at the second or the college level, they understand what we're going through as well, just like every other thing. So Coach Hamill said, go ahead. I'm sorry, Steve.
Well, I was just going to say mid was on our superintendent's call today too. We were discussing that very thing. So,
okay. Coach Carrie Hamill for our track team says the MHSAA has a representative council meeting on June 15th. That will likely decide a lot of the info regarding the direction of sports. So that's coming up in about 5 days or so. So that's an answer for our sports people. We got a lot of people that are definitely helping out people, get that idea, where to get a hot spot, all that good stuff. Let's see here. Yep. Carrie Gauthier she just sent the link for Jamie to help. Here's another one. Desiree, would there be a support system for parents as we learned how to do things differently than the way kids were getting taught now? So my children, obviously I learned to do math and we carried numbers and things like that. And so I think that's it's a very, very valid question by Desiree.
Yeah.
There's some kind of a support system for parents who learned how to do things one way when they grew up and they've since changed.
Great idea.
That's a great suggestion. It really is. Yeah. I had not thought of that, to be honest with you. Who's our note taker?
That's the moderator.
Jay Groves.
No, that's the moderator.
Oh, that's
Steve, if I can
address
that one real quick, because I actually want to reiterate what you said earlier. We got tossed to the wolves on March 13th when they closed school down. And I watched teachers, I'm only going to speak about Shepherd, scramble. Some who had never had blended learning training, some who had never had an online environment whatsoever, do the best possible job they could. And I had parents approach me saying, if this is what it's going to look like in the fall, my kid's not coming back. I've heard everything from GED to homeschooling to going to K-12 universities. What I want you to understand, and you just talked about a parent support group. Steve and I brainstormed for a while one day. Because he said, Jay, if you had to do it, what would you do? Well, if it were me and it was totally online, I'm still going to teach like I'm in the classroom. I'm going to have videos, short 5-minute clips, then turn the kids loose as it comes. Parents could watch that. But I said, it's got to be totally different with much more structure, rigor, and attendance. You got to remember, March 13th, we closed the doors and everybody was sent scrambling. Now we've got time for PD. We got people coming in we're talking to. We're looking at different models. We're using Google Classroom. Steve, we're going K-12 with that. I'm under the assumption that that will be Google Classroom, at least 6-8 or 6-12.
Yeah, that's the
Google
plan, yes.
Classroom, the only thing you got to worry about 6-12 as that comes into that. But I'm looking at it from the standpoint of they did the best they could with what we had to do. This fall, it'll look different.
Yeah.
It's going to look different, but it'll have the same LMS, learning management system.
No, and I think it's Jamie made a comment and said, I just want to say a huge thank you to all. I just want to say a huge thank you to the school and staff for all they've done for these kids. No one ever thought we'd see something like this, and I'm very thankful for everyone and all that they've done. And I think that's probably very spot on.
Amen.
Let's see. Jamie says, will there be support for parents? I'm not a teacher. I have a student that struggles reading and math. I think that was the note that I just took, Jamie, that's a great idea that came earlier. Let's see. Let me scroll through there. Let's see.
Hey, Luke,
Heather.
Luke, focus right here.
Yes, gotcha.
Add to that. I don't know who Jamie is. I know a lot of Jamies. When we first posted that letter, I know a friend of mine, Kelly, has to be in school. She's a very tactile learner. Imagine being in that virtual environment with that child. And I mean, she's scrambling. We had resources coming from across the country with that. We're going to do everything we can, you guys. But to reiterate, Steve, Mike, and Luke, and everything we're saying, it starts with the state. The state says, here's your funding. The state says, here's your plan. Here's what we can do then. And then we'll do everything we can to try to accommodate students and parents.
Sure. Let's see. Heather has a question. If they're questioning returning to the school next year, how are they even allowed to start summer school on Monday? From talking with parents, it's going to be pretty full, and I'm not sure we are really taking into consideration the mental struggles. Hang on one second. I got to just be a little bit. Mental struggles this has caused on a lot of students already, and to prolong it may be worse for them. Any thoughts on summer school? And we're allowing kids back into the school.
And Jay, you might want to hit on it too, but the one, we didn't get a lot of flexibility from the state in terms of high school requirements. And we had quite a few students who need to do credit recovery basically, or summer school to keep up with graduation requirements. I think they're doing 10 or less in a class, spaced out in cafeterias and wearing masks, and they're doing temperature checks on the way in. It is fine for us to do. The executive order that closed down schools ended technically yesterday at 4:00 when school ended. So that's when our school year ended. So that executive order actually became null and void at that point.
Okay. Yeah, we had a comment from Lou. He says, take some time to contact your legislative members, tell them to fully fund education.
Amen.
Let's see. Yep. Here's another question, and I don't know if we have the answer to it. If we're to do all virtual school, how would students with IEPs or speech services?
You're going to let me tag off that question, or you're going to keep talking?
Tag it.
Are you answering, Jay?
I'm pouting.
Jay.
Now I'm trying to remember what I said.
You're
one on the panel, and you don't let me talk, I forget my point. What are we talking about, Steve?
I don't know. You're always talking, Jay. So
you're killed. Don't even go there. But anyway, with the summer school situation, those were mostly for the kids that were trying to get back on track so they graduate on time. They're the ones that really need to get in there and do that. Now, is there a common denominator? I'm not going to look at it, but they were the ones that we really had a hard time motivating through this, which is understandable. But what a lot of people didn't understand is if you got the credit, no credit, the staff decided that no credit would be a D-. So if you got your credit, you had to get your work in to get to a D- level to get that credit and move on. It wasn't set at an A standard. So these are the kids that if they did have a problem with that, didn't get to that D- level and weren't turning their stuff in or didn't get back. I mean, and I know it was a tough situation, but teachers were as flexible. And I know that a lot of them are still taking grading now and possibly a little bit longer to try to get these kids through so they don't have to do that. that summer school is a benefit to the kids to get in there so they can graduate on time.
Okay. Joe Pasalacqua, he actually posted a link that people can get on the thing that is an opportunity to sign a petition that goes to all your officials and let them know your thoughts. Let's see.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. K-12 University would be just like the online learning that Shepherd has offered for the remaining year. I don't know what that exactly.
You're talking Plato. If you're thinking Plato, the credit recovery system that we've got, yes and no. I'm not going to speak ill of the K-12 that they've got. I'm just going to leave that one there. But Plato is our credit recovery. Like, say, for instance, if you have a student fails my English 12A and it's not offered, they fail it second try, they could take it concurrently on Plato with English 12B. So that's what the Plato online learning thing is that they do.
Okay. Amy says, how are students that will be transitioning to a new building be handled? My daughter's headed to 6th grade in the fall. I know that's as a parent, I can tell the 5th to 6th grade transition is tough because they're going from being nurtured and little to some autonomy and whatnot. Anything different that we'll be handling, I think it'll probably be the same, I guess.
Yeah, and especially it's even harder if they're coming 5th grade from Wynn all the way into the big school here. I would say if you have any questions with that, I would contact the middle school office. They could give you more clear directions on that transition plan.
I know we're hoping to do some of the same kind of orientation as in the past. I definitely feel that person. I have that 5th grader at Wynn that's coming into the big middle school, and I also have that 8th grader that's going into high school. You know, these are big steps. So I know we definitely hope to support those kids and get them that orientation they need. You know, so.
Absolutely. And I can speak as a parent that, you know, I mean, anybody that knows the staff at Shepherd Public Schools, I believe that they're the best around and they're going to do what's best for kids. Amanda says, I don't understand that there are many unknowns still. However, many parents are wondering that if kiddos go back in the fall and there is only a certain amount of kiddos going each day, has there been, so her question is about siblings. So, you know, and I'm a multiple kid family. Jay, you are. Mike, you are. I mean, we all have multiple kids, and I think her question is how in the world would that look if your kids are going on different days and potential. I mean, obviously that's looking ahead in the future, but I can understand, Amanda, that's a concern. So, is there anything about that?
I mean, that's a great concern, and it was brought up before too at a previous meeting. I think the goal would try to get the whole family going on the same days and times. That becomes a scheduling issue, especially once you factor in CTE and other things like that. But it would seem that you would try to keep everyone going on the same day from a family.
Okay. Mrs. Quack, who is one of our middle school teachers, she said the middle school has a program called Where Everyone Belongs Web. And I know my son was one of the people involved in it. Mike, I know your daughter was, as far as being leaders in it last year in 8th grade. 6th grade students will be welcome to and oriented to the school by 8th graders and staff. We're excited to see them in August. And the web program is awesome. If your kids have went through it in 6th grade, I mean, they have an absolute blast. And, you know, everybody's top notch in that. Do we have any more questions? That was the last one.
Really, really big help for them 6th graders getting introduced to middle school. That web program is an awesome program. So
yeah, it certainly is.
Yeah, and if you've worried about that transition from, you know, the Wynn 5th grade or the Shepherd 5th grade into the 6th grade, that you know, teachers are out and they are helping kids undo lockers and, you know, all that good stuff. I mean, they are definitely well supported in that. So I'm just going to give you guys a last chance. If you got last things to say, we're holding strong at about 130 people watching right now, but we don't have any new questions coming in as of right now. So if you've got any, please by all means. Let's see. So Bill Chilman, superintendent for Beale City, says, I know you're a Blue Jay, Luke, but how about hosting one of these for Beale and Mount Pleasant soon too? Bill, you get a hold of me, buddy, and we'll see what we can do.
I own the program rights.
Yeah, we can work out a deal with Bill's a buddy. Hey, D. Curtis asked, and I'm not sure if we answered it because I know that there was a question. How will we be handling potentially students who have IEPs or speech or those type things? I mean, I know we asked it, but I'm not sure if it got answered.
And I'm thinking back. I believe the question was if we're 100% virtual.
Yeah. Yep.
The same as it was this spring, most likely. I think there were, I forget the name of the plans, and somebody can throw it up there, but the students who had to have their IEPs adjusted, there was a contingency plan put in place for those students to get through the virtual time, because there are some things you can't do virtually.
Correct. And I think it's important to reiterate that, kids who have the 504 plans or the IEPs, it's not like, again, that they are just, let go and not given any supports. I mean, I think that's very important. We got a question. Ashley says, will the counselor be getting a hold of students about schedules? My daughter will be a sophomore and they are not able to do school full time. We would rather not do the dual enrollment.
I would contact the high school directly on that one.
Okay. So Ashley, contact the school, the high school directly, Mr. Ross, and go from there.
Yep.
But totally understandable. Jennifer says, is there any possibility they'll just go back to school 5 days a week? I think that's probably what we're hoping, but I
certainly hope so.
We all played the Powerball last night too, and we hoped that we would win, and we did not. Or mega ball, something, I don't know, whatever it was. But no, I agree. That would be our hope. Desiree, my youngest is in speech, and his teacher did FaceTime meetings with him and Zoom meetings to help with his speech. So I know they're doing the best that they possibly can. Yep. Mrs. Gauthier says, Ashley, Mr. Ross is working now on schedule. If you have a question, contact him, Mr. Ross, at the high school directly if there's any questions. Any last thoughts, gentlemen? We're still holding at 100 plus, 120, 125 people, but we'll give people a last chance to type in their questions. Jay, any last thoughts from you?
No, just number one, I know this was huge for Mr. Brimmer and Mr. Klump. This is a big step. Never gone Facebook Live with us before. So you're out of your comfort zone, but I think we're the only people in the state of Michigan to do this, precedent setting. And if they're watching over there in Beale and Mount Pleasant and drooling at the bit to get a hold of it, we already said, because the biggest thing is transparency. When Steve and I started doing the videos before, it was to get the information to the people, because the worst thing in the world are assumptions, rumors, perceptions. This is what we know. And the biggest thing Mr. Brimmer wants you to understand is when he sends the letter out, we got to wait on the state. We're waiting on the state for the plan. We're waiting on the state for the money. And once that happens, watch the machine start to roll. But I can't thank you guys enough for taking your time today. Seriously, because I know you were nervous. Luke and I are too dumb to get nervous. We just do this. We battle. So
let me grab a couple more questions, because a couple more are coming in. Yes, Jamie, I think you hit the nail on the head. If anything, we as parents, in conjunction with the school district, cannot fail our kids. They are our future. Amen to that. Nicole is wondering that once we find out that what the plan is, can we do another one of these Facebook Live type things? And now that Mike and Steve are old pros at it,
I will if Mike does.
I think they're more than happy. Let's see. Our foster grandmas are inquiring if they will be going back to school in the fall. Yeah, we know that you love that, and we hope so as well. Yeah. Let's see. Let me just look real quick here. Cynthia is asking if kids are supposed to wear masks but parents don't want them to, how will that be dealt with? Steve, there you go. There's a question for you. The infamous mask, and it's brought up, right now on a daily basis. So, right.
Well, technically, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, isn't it a law right now, Luke, that they have to wear a mask?
It's not a law. Nope, it is not an enforceable.
I thought
it's not an enforceable law. So where that comes, so like I know that there's been businesses that have been getting some heat because they are requiring their patrons, but you have to remember that's a private business. So a private business can flat out say, no, I don't want you here if you don't have a mask on, and they can just ask you to leave their property. But there's no law that says you're going to go to jail because you didn't wear a mask. Not at all.
Okay.
I'll turn it over to you real quick, Mike, for any last thoughts.
Sure. Yeah, I just anything everybody wants to know what they can do or how they can help. Like we said before, contact your legislators. That's probably the biggest thing they can do right now. This stuff is going to come, like Steve said, from the top down. It's going to be handed down to us, and those are the people down in Lansing that are making a lot of these decisions. So we need to let them know what our thoughts are and what we'd like to see done at the state level. And I guess just for everybody to know that a lot of people are going off on summer vacations and stuff, but trust me, there's a lot of people here in this school district that are going to be working all summer trying to figure out all these problems and questions and issues. And we have the best people here. We have the most talented professionals at what they do. And trust me, their best interest is looking out for your kids. So just know that that's going to be taking place. And as we know more, I know we're going to be getting more out to you. So everybody will be in the know. But there's so many things up in the air right now. It's just hard to relay much more because we don't know. So just thank you.
Absolutely. Let's see. Alan said, when or will I be able to know how my kid did during this distance learning? I know that Power School was getting updated today. So you log on to your child's Power School and you can see, I know my son Cooper, we knew how he did in all of his classes, his 8th grade classes today. So I would assume those are, Jay, is most of the grades, I would assume, they
were today. The high school did them during a staff meeting today. We all got on there, and it was basically this simple. You had to credit, no credit, and if you didn't touch anything, didn't do anything, the kid passed. But you had to go in and put an NC for no credit if that came. And then that would let them determine who was eligible for summer school or who had more time to work on it, kind of thing. But yes, they should be in and done by now.
Okay. Let's see. Can you provide contact information for the state so we can contact the appropriate person or people? Jennifer, that would be just a Google search for your congressman.
Well, Luke, you could also like cell phone 989. Sorry.
Obviously, it's Roger Hauk, John Molinar. That would be typically who it would be, and I've met both of those gentlemen, very, very good gentlemen, and concerned about what's going on. I know some grades are in, some grades are not in. Steve, last words. We're gonna wrap this up because some of them are kind of repeating, and I think we're gonna end up tagging this and putting it on the school page or something, Jay?
What I will do is, because my Wi-Fi is almost used up at the house, tomorrow morning I'll get up. I got to get up early. Got a golf date at 9 o'clock. I'm going to be in school parking lot uploading this to YouTube. I'll take the YouTube link. I will send it to Mr. Brimmer. You do with it what you want to do at that point. It'll also be my Facebook page to watch as much as you got, and I believe, Mr. Sawyer, you're tagged in it.
Okay. Mr. Brimmer.
Yes.
Last thoughts.
I would just want to piggyback off some things that Mike Klump said earlier. When March 13th hit, and it hit unexpectedly, the dedication that I saw from the staff of Shepherd Schools was absolutely phenomenal. From teachers, the lunch ladies were working so hard to get the lunches out, and the volunteers that were helping them. Dave Brandt stepping up and helping deliver that food. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on, and I'm sure I'm missing some people. Our administrative staff, the amount of work, time, and effort they put in, it's phenomenal. I would get up in the middle of the night and flip my computer on, and during spring break, one of them would be on there working, it seemed like. So just a great big thanks to everybody. And maybe it wasn't the smoothest thing in the world, but working with what they had, boy, I think they did a great job. So kudos to everybody.
Excellent. And so if people, you know how things usually happen, in the middle of the night, all of a sudden you'll go, oh, I wish I would have asked that question. You can send that to Steve, any of our building principals. Their email address is their first initial, their last name at shepherdschools.net. So it'd be sbrimmer@shepherdschools.net. Hey, just one last thing before we get off here. I think we all need to remember the sky is not falling. Okay. We're all going to be okay. And I would echo what somebody said earlier, and I totally get it, is because I am far from a teacher at all. But working with the school, we're going to do our best possible to deal with something that we've never seen before. And it's not just unique to Shepherd. It's not just unique to the state of Michigan. it's unique to schools across the country. So I definitely say hang in there, and we'll get through this. So we are going to sign off now. Again, if you have any questions, you've got the phone number to central office and the email addresses. And any last things from you guys real quick?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
sounds
you.
good. Thanks, guys. We appreciate it. Take care.
All right.
Stay safe.